Ecuador's police report that 2 new explosions occurred in the city of Cuenca, located in the center-south of the country, with no casualties. On September 1st marks the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt against the Vice President of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. In France, the pension reform proposed by President Emmanuel Macron goes into effect. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The National Police and the Fire Brigade of Ecuador reported that 2 new explosions occurred on Thursday in the city of Cuenca, located in the center-south of the country, with no casualties. The first explosion was reported in the structure of a bridge at the municipality of Sayausi, northwest of Cuenca, causing damage to pipes and asphalt. The second event was caused by the detonation of an explosive device inside a vehicle in Totoracocha, in the east of the city. These events come right after the detonation of 2 car bombs in Quito, the country's capital, on Wednesday night and early Thursday morning, which also left no injured people. Police authorities reported on that 6 people had been detained for these attacks in the capital. In Panama, the first round of debate of the National Assembly's Commerce Commission to discuss the approval of the concession contract between the state and Minera de Panama, a subsidiary of the Canadian company First Quantum Minerals, ended on Thursday. The commission has been in permanent session since Monday, August 28th, and more than 200 speakers have already participated, including social leaders, environmentalists, miners, and businessmen. Next week, the discussion will move to the districts of Donoso and Omar Torrijos, Herrera, both belonging to the province of Colón, where the mining project is proposed. Meanwhile, for next Tuesday, Panama United People's Alliance has called for a rally in front of the National Assembly to reject the contract signed by the government and Minera de Panama as illegal and a violation of sovereignty.
Pero yo quiero señalar además,
I would also like to point out that this is a contract that infringes on national sovereignty. This is forbidden by the Constitution, and I ask, are the deputies going to approve a contract that if only has 1 article and it's unconstitutional, would you necessarily be obliged to reject it? I would like to point out that in the face of the profit of a multinational company, because resources are Panamanian but the company is not, I'm not obliged, and I warn that I would not recognize any contract that violates the Constitution of this country, that damages the lives of our Panamanian men and women, that damages our resources.
The Panamanian prosecution requested exemplary sentences for 14 defendants in the Blue Apple case for money laundering, a hearing that continues on Friday with the argument of defense lawyers. According to the report of the Public Prosecutor's Office, among the main defendants stand out the former ministers of Public Works between 2009 and 2014, Federico Suarez and Jaime for requesting bribes to state contractors in exchange for facilities for the execution and collection of infrastructure projects. The hearing, headed by Judge Bailoisa Martinez, investigates the transfer of $80 million that 7 companies that built bridges, roads, and housing for the state confessed to have had to pay in bribes during the government of Ricardo Martinelli between the years 2009 and 2014. For this case, the court already issued a sentence of 10 years in prison against Adolfo de Barrio, Martinelli's private secretary. In Mexico, the sector of dissident teachers grouped in the National Coordinating Committee of Education Workers began a march on Friday as part of a national day of struggle that began Thursday. This action will last until next Sunday, and the objective is to achieve the immediate reinstallation of a national resolution table headed by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. At a press conference, the leader of the Chiapas Teachers Union, Professor Isael González, announced that the CNTE reserves the right to take action if the policy of deaf ear and closed-mindedness to listen to the demands of the teachers and workers continues. He detailed that this Friday, after the national mobilization, a political rally will be held in the vicinity of the Chamber of Deputies, where they will define whether they will set up a siege to the seat of the legislative body. During a dialogue with journalists this Thursday, the president of Bolivia, Luis Arce, gave his opinion on the proposal of the far-right candidate for the presidency of Argentina, Javier Milei, to dollarize the southern country. In this sense, Arce affirmed that the success of the Bolivian economy model was based on reverting the dollarization process.
I remember when I used to go abroad as a Minister of Economy to explain the success of our economy policy and our economy model. They wondered why our economy was so successful. One of the elements of the success of our economy was to revert the process of dollarization towards Bolivianization, because this implies, from the point of view of economy policy, recovering a very valuable element such as monetary policy. When we are in a dollarized economy, there is no monetary policy.
And this Friday, September 1st, marks the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt against the Vice President of Argentina, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. On the first anniversary of the moment when Fernando Sabac Montiel fired his gun a few centimeters away from Cristina Kirchner's face, social and political organizations and referents recall with concern the event. In this way, they claim the numerous links between the known perpetrators of the attack and far-right groups and opposition leaders from Juntos por el Cambio, Together for Change, have not been thoroughly investigated. At the moment of the failed assassination attempt, a first for Argentina's recent history, both Patricia Bullrich and Javier Milei, current presidential candidates for the right and far-right political parties, failed to condemn the attack. Cristina Kirchner, Argentina's top popular leader, denounced there is a mafia and a parallel state in full operation in the Southern Republic.
This is to explain the system that is working in Argentina and to put an end to the theorizing activity of the lawfare in the party. No, mafia and parallel state. That's what is happening in Argentina, and that is why today I've been condemned to 6 years in jail and perpetual disablement. This is the real sentence. This is what they wanted, perpetual disablement. They would be able to put me in prison December 10th. That is, as long as some businessman, another Caputo, does not think of financing any other gang of criminals, and before December 10, 2023, they shoot me. That is what they want, prison or death.
In the Caribbean, the word conuco comes from the indigenous languages and names a small parcel of agricultural land. In this occasion, we bring you the story of Las Conuqueras, a group of women in the Venezuelan state of Carabobo that found in communal agriculture the solutions to their families' hardships, sometimes with their bare hands. Today, they feed, nurture, and give a purpose to their community through self-sustained agriculture with governmental assistance. They are the protagonists of this new episode of the series Venezuela on the Move, a production of our colleagues Adriana Sibori and Jesus Romero.
Not even the burning sun or the difficulties that may arise can stop their work. They are known as Conuqueras women, and they are farmers.
I have been working here for 10 years for this community. Apart from that, I also study and work. Within the same agricultural zone, there are people like women who are seamstresses, housewives, who do other activities. We organize ourselves either in the morning or in the afternoon to have the possibility of doing all the activities.
Dulby takes care of some of the plots of land in the morning shift. Her son and her daughter-in-law live with her and sometimes help her in the fields.
I teach mathematics in a high school, a public high school. We are people with an enormous treasure, but more than that, of producing, of creating, of doing different things. There is something that we should always keep in mind, which is community, and we should never lose that.
Everything they grow is for their families and the community itself. To this day, they have produced 40,000 kilograms of food, cereals, fruits, and vegetables.
At first it was hard because we started with our hands, with just our hands. We started using spades and machetes to plant, Then we started to work with institutions. We contacted them and they came and they saw that what we were doing was a reality.
Now they receive training, they have instruments, and they have been able to build a deep water well for irrigation. And the government has also given land titles to these organized women. In this town, Conoquera's women serve and distribute the food house by house to more than 13,000 people.
Adriana Cibor y Jesús Romero, teleSUR Carabobo, Venezuela.
If you enjoyed this one, you can find more episodes of our series Venezuela on the Move in YouTube and other platforms. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. In the United States, workers of the electoral and federal systems announced that they have received multiple threats in the last month for keeping open investigations of the past elections. The Department of Justice alleged that the threats to its employees have increased for those in charge of investigating and combating disinformation related to the past presidential elections of 2020. In addition, they point out that after the assault to the Capitol last year by Donald Trump supporters, the attacks have increased a few months before the elections this year. On the other hand, the department created a specific commission to monitor the integrity of its election officials, which will prosecute those responsible to prevent further aggressions. In France, the pension reform proposed by President Emmanuel Macron went into effect. The new law is imposed to raise the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64. Another of the main measures of the reform is the increase of up to 43 years of contribution to be able to receive full pension. The law, approved by the French government, citing Article 49.3 of the Constitution without the need to go through Parliament, provoked months of social unrest called by workers' unions and the country's society. Let's recall that the approval of the pension reform law proposed by the government led to a wave of demonstrations throughout the country. The strikes, which lasted several months, caused more than 290 people to be arrested and at least 108 policemen to be injured, according to the authorities' reports. For his part, France's Interior Minister, Gerard Darmanin, said that most of the at least 300 demonstrations called by the unions throughout the country were carried out normally, and that he expects that those responsible for the attacks against police officers and property will receive firm sanctions. The UK government announced that more than 100 schools will be shut over safety concerns as they were built with a certain type of concrete which is prone to collapse. The government gave the order just days before students returned to school for the start of the autumn term. The type of concrete forced in the closure is reinforced autoclave aerated concrete, known as RAAC. The Department of Education said the concrete could be found in 572 schools across England. Concrete experts state that the alarm is real as the material could give in without warning.
It could be very dangerous because they could fail without any warning. However, when you consider how many schools have racked concrete in them, we've only had one failure, but one failure is probably too many for anybody else to really take that liability and risk.
The European Commission approved the use of a new version of BioNTech Pfizer's COVID vaccine under the name of Comirnaty XBB 1.5. The vaccine is suitable for adults as well as children and infants older than 6 months and is intended to increase the breadth of immunity against dominant and new variants. According to European Medicines Agency recommendations, the vaccine should be administered in a single dose regardless of vaccination schemes. The approval of the new shot comes as European authorities are preparing for a possible new outbreak of the disease in the autumn-winter season. A modification of the contract with BioNTech Pfizer, signed in May 2023, guarantees that the member states have access to vaccines adapted to the new variants of COVID-19. On Friday, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russian President Vladimir Putin will hold talks with his Turkey counterpart Recep Tayyip Erdogan on September 4th in the city of Sochi. The spokesman specified that the talks will take place next Monday at noon. This is the first meeting between the two leaders since the grain deal was rescinded. The previous in-person meeting between both heads of states was on October 13th last year in Astana, Kazakhstan. However, the two leaders are in constant contact. The last telephone conversation between Putin and Erdogan took place on August 2nd. The Turkish head of state visited this country just over a year ago when he met with his Russian counterpart in Sochi on August 5th, 2022. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. On Friday, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs affirmed that the country is willing to improve its relationships with the Vatican. The statement comes after Pope Francis sent a note to Beijing with the aim of achieving a rapprochement between the parties.
China has taken note of the relevant reports. The Vatican's blessing showed friendship and goodwill in recent years. China has maintained communication with the Vatican. China is willing to continue to walk in the same direction as the Vatican, carry out constructive dialogue, enhance understanding, accumulate mutual trust, and promote the process of improving the relationship between the two sides.
Pope Francis arrived in Mongolia on Friday to support the country's small Catholic community and to promote interreligious dialogue. It's the first time a pope has visited the Asian country, which hosts one of the world's smallest and newest Catholic communities. The pontiff plane was welcomed by an escort of honor guards in traditional clothing. The schedule of the visit indicates that September 2nd will be destined for institutional appointments during the morning with civil authorities, including the President and the Prime Minister, and in the afternoon with bishops, priests, and missionaries. The Pope will also celebrate a Mass on September 3rd at the Steppe Arena for believers living in Mongolia, the majority of whom live in the capital, where he will also have the participation of 1,000 other believers from neighboring countries such as Russia, China, and Thailand. On Friday, another Palestinian man was shot and killed by Israeli forces during a raid in an occupied West Bank town following a confrontation that resulted in a building being destroyed. Abdul Rahim Fayez Ganham, 36 years old, was shot in the head in Aqaba, north of Tubas, and pronounced dead at the local hospital. Nidal Oded, director of emergency services in Aqaba, told local media that Israeli forces prevented ambulances from reaching the wounded, and one ambulance was directly targeted by live ammunition. Israeli forces raided the town on early morning, looking for another man who they accused of carrying out a shooting attack near a checkpoint in the Jordan Valley last month. According to the United Nations, 2023 is the deadliest year for Palestinians since fatality records began, as more than 200 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces since January this year. Iran's foreign minister visited Lebanon on Friday and offered his country's support to help the Middle Eastern nation with its electricity crisis. Hossein Amir Abdollahian said Tehran is ready to help build power stations in Lebanon to end a decades-old electricity shortage. Electricity cuts last for most of the day in the small Mediterranean country, and the majority of the population relies on expensive private generators. Lebanon has been under a void of power since the term of President Michel Aoun ended in October last year amid deep divisions between rival groups, with the parliament failing 12 consecutive times to elect a new leader. The nation is also under a spiraling economy, with a cash crisis and an ostensive devaluation of its currency.
There has always been an active commercial sector and a great commercial capacities in Lebanon throughout history, and Lebanon has an important place in our region. The approach by any country to cooperate with Lebanon will be in the interest of that country, Lebanon, and the entire region.
In Johannesburg, South Africa, on Friday it was the turn of police sniffer dogs who searched through the wreckage of the abandoned building to see if they could find more bodies. The fire in the 5-story building claimed the lives of 74 people, most of them unrecognizable. Investigators said they would have to rely on DNA samples to identify the victims. City officials said an estimated 200 people live in the abandoned building, converted into illegal housing. Family members of the victims have begun the grim task of identifying their loved ones at a nearby morgue. The cause of the fire remains unknown. We have come to the end of this news briefing, and you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.